Hi y'all, so welcome back to my channel. Today is my September wrap-up video. So I will be showing you guys all the books I read in September and what I rated them. So let's start with the first one. I read The Notebook by Nicholas Sparks. I rated this 5 stars. I've seen the movie more than 10 times. So I was really anxious to read this story. I loved it so much. They cut out some stuff that was in the movie that's not in the book, which I was a little disappointed about, but I rated the story 5 stars. And I can see why they cut out some of the movie stuff opposed to putting it in the book, because a lot of it was graphic, so I can understand why they took that out. But I rated this one 5 stars. It's a really good romance read. So those of you that will be doing Romanceathon in the new year, I highly recommend that you pick this book for one of the Romanceathon props. Okay, the second book I read this month was Her Rebel Heart by Shannon Farrington. I was supposed to buddy read this with my cousin Nicola in Virginia, but funny story, she got the wrong book than what I had. She got the title right, but it was by the wrong author. So we just ended up reading our own books this month by those authors and just discussing it. We discussed it actually a few minutes ago when I talked to her on Facebook. So we both liked the book that we picked. Different authors though, but we really liked them. The one about mine that I didn't like was the woman main character kept arguing with the male main character, and that really bugged me a lot. So this one I rated 3.5 stars because of that. So this one I will be giving to my cousin to read, along with a bunch of other books I have for her that I didn't want anymore. So next book I read was Jennifer by Dee Henderson. This book was such a sweet story about a doctor down in Texas, and she falls in love for her surgeon friend. But as the story goes on, Jennifer gets some bad news from her own primary doctor about a diagnosis, and she feels like her life's falling apart until her surgeon friend opens up and says that he loves her and all this other stuff. So I thought that the book was sad, but the ending was just so beautiful. I rated it 5 stars. So if you're looking for a short story to read, I would highly recommend this book. It's such a sweet story. Next book I read, which was a buddy read in Book and Buddies that I had submitted back in July or June, I think, was The Beautiful by Renee Adada. This was my first time reading any of her books, so I wasn't sure what to expect, but I really loved it. It was a really good fantasy series set in 1832 New Orleans about this woman who she travels to New Orleans to this convent with her sisters, and they find out that the prince that runs it, he's kind of a bad person, so they go there and they find all this stuff out that's shocking. So the main character tries to persuade the prince or Sebastian to not do those things, but in the end she ends up falling for him and everything. So I highly recommend this. If you're looking for a good fantasy read for October, I highly recommend that you read this one. Okay, the next books I read this month were Lydia's Charm by Wanda Brunstetter. This is about a widow woman who moves her son and herself to Charm, Ohio after she lost her husband and her father 5 years earlier to help her mom take care of her ailing grandfather. Through the story, you learn about Lydia's past and her son's past, and then something tragic happens 2 months before Christmas, and Lydia doesn't know how she's going to deal with it till another Amish man comes into her life and helps her cope with it and falls in love with her. And so it's a really sweet story, and it's a standalone. So if you really like standalones and a sweet love story, then this book is definitely for you. Next book I read was This One Time with Julia by David Lampson. I received this for a Christmas gift back in December, so I was really looking forward to reading this. I love the story. The only problem I had was Julia kept going back and forth between the two brothers, and like she couldn't decide who she wanted to be with. So that really bothered me, because like she's a 25-year-old woman. Like, why are you going back and forth between a guy when you clearly know who you want to be with? So that was a big turnoff for me. So that's why I rated this 3.5 stars, and why I will be getting rid of this or swapping this book with somebody else for another book that I really want to read. I was not pleased with this book. I felt like the author just wrote a bunch of stuff on paper and just shoved it into a book. So I really wasn't pleased with this one. Next one I read was Sanctuary by Beverly Lewis and David Lewis. This was a reread for me because I read this book 10 years ago and I really loved it, and I still love this book. It's about a woman who was married, but she was in an abusive relationship, so she moves to an Amish community just to get away and find peace, and in the process she decides to like join the Amish churches and all that, and finds that life is easier in the country than it is in the city. So that one was a 5-star for me. Next ones I read for this month were Mrs. Mallory and A Necessary End. This was a cozy mystery. I received this as a Christmas gift back in December. I really enjoyed this story. I thought it was a very cute, adorable, and funny cozy mystery. So if you're looking for a really good cozy mystery set in a bookshop, then for like next month, if you need it for a cozy mystery for like a prop, I really recommend this one. I think it was really cute and funny. The next book that I read was Before We Were Strangers by Brenda Novick. This was my first time reading a Brenda Novick book, so I wasn't totally sure what to expect by it, but I really loved it. I thought it was a really good thriller, suspense, mystery book about a woman who, when she was 5 years old, her mother was murdered. So then she's 25 years old, present day, 2018. So she goes back home to figure out who killed her mother. And through finding that out, she finds secrets about her father and about her family and stuff that went on when she was 5 years old that she was not aware about. So the book takes you through like every aspect of Sloane's life, and it leaves you in a shockingness because of what Sloane finds out. So I rated this 5 stars. I wish I could rate it 10 stars. That's how good it was. This is my new favorite thriller of 2020. So if you're looking for a really good thriller book, I highly recommend that you pick this one up and read it. You will not be disappointed. Next book I read was In Too Deep by Mary Connolly. This one I rated 3.5 stars because 2 of the characters were arguing again. And this was like the 3rd book I've read this month that the characters were doing that, and it just bothered me so much. So I rated this 3.5 stars. I was really disappointed that I had to knock 2 stars off because I really loved book 1 when I read it back in April, but this one I just wasn't happy with how the characters were arguing all the time, so that's why I rated it 3.5 stars. But if you really like a historical fiction romance set in like the 1800s, back when there was like cowboys and Indians type of stories, then I highly recommend that you read this book. Hopefully you'll have better luck with the rating than what I did. Next book I read was another cozy mystery, The Dead and the Beautiful by Cheryl Crane. I loved this book so much. Oh my gosh, it was so cute and funny. It was set in California on Venice Beach, where they were filming a TV show or a movie. I can't remember which one it was. And someone gets murdered, so this sister and friend, they try to figure out who murdered their friend Ryan, and through it they both have like comical aspects of the story. Like they don't agree on what the investigation, who should investigate what first. So it's very funny and comical, and a really feel good read for fall. So I rated this 5 stars. So if you're looking for a really good feel good read, then I highly recommend that you pick this book up. Thank you to my book club friend Jasmine DeGroat, who sent this to me back in February with a bunch of other box books. So I will be looking into reading more books by this author. Okay, next book I read that I rated 3.5 stars. This was the third book that I did not like this month. Picture Perfect by Jodi Picoult. This was given to me by my friend from school, Erica. And she's getting rid of a bunch of books. Just gave them to me back in February as well. And I really wanted to like this book because I loved Keeping Faith by Jodi Picoult. Second Glance wasn't really all that best for me. And this one wasn't either. This one was about a woman who loses her memory after an accident. So she keeps having flashbacks from like the 1990s to 1980s to the 1970s, and it's a back and forth time travel thing that I really loved about it. And one thing I didn't like was the main character and the main character was Cassie. She kept arguing with her husband Alex in this book, and I just couldn't, I didn't like that. It was a no for me because it was just very annoying. I will keep this book, but I probably won't read it again in a very long time unless I have to revisit for a readathon for Jodi's books, then I will. But overall, this was another book by her that I was not a fan of. Next book I read was a reread for Wheel of TBR. Was Whispers Down the Lane, Summerhill's book 1 in the Summerhill Secret series. I read this back when I was 12 years old. I'm 30 years old now, so you can tell how many years it's been since I've read this book and series. But I will be rereading this series in February or sometime next year, maybe June, I can't remember. But I really love this book. I still give it 5 stars. It was very cute and suspenseful, especially for young adult girls, like 12-year-olds. They would really love this series because it's set in Amish country, and it's about a female English or Amish girl helping her English friend, and then she stays with another Amish family, and it's just very interesting and very suspenseful. So I highly recommend this if you're looking for a quick read, because it's really quick. There's only like 21 chapters, so 139 pages. So I got this done in a day. Next book that I read was nonfiction, 100 Things Packers Fans Should Know and Do Before They Die. This was about the history of the Green Bay Packers football team, the NFL team that's located in Green Bay, Wisconsin. And it just tells you about like players and coaches and just the history of the team. I rated this 5 stars because I'm a big Green Bay Packers fan. So I really enjoyed this book. I thought it was very informative for those who don't watch NFL football but want to learn about it. So if you are one that doesn't watch football but you want to learn about some of the teams, then this book is definitely for you. The other 2 books that I read this month that I don't have physical copies of yet were Pumpkins and Potions. It was a cozy mystery short stories in one book about just set in Halloweenish time. I read that as a buddy read with my book club friend Aspen Blair. I rated it 5 stars. I thought it was so cute. It had mentioned witches and cats and all Halloween-y like stuff. So I really enjoyed that. I definitely want to get the physical copy of that book because I loved it so much. So if you like short cozy mystery stories in one book, I highly recommend Pumpkins and Potions for you for like next month. It would be perfect. And the other book, I just finished it a few hours ago, which was Court of Bitter Thorn by K.L. Moody. I got it free e-arc on booksirens.com, so I read that, and I love that book. Like, that series is so amazing. It was only book 1, but I really love K.L. Moody's fantasy aspect of fairies, so I highly recommend that book. I will be reading book 2 in probably January or February, because I really want to find out how Eldora does now that she's moving to a castle with her soon-to-be husband. So I'm really looking forward to how K.L. Moody continues that storyline. So those are all the books that I read this year, or this month in September. I hope you guys enjoy my wrap-up video. If there's any here that you read that you liked or didn't like, let me know in the comments below so that I can get feedback. I love getting feedback from you guys about books I've read or books I will read. So that's very important to me. I hope you guys have a good rest of the weekend, and I hope to see you guys in my next video with my October TBR. Bye, guys!